Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another awesome weekly market forecast with me, T.Mayne. And in today's one, guys, we're going to be going through 4 different pairs: the DXY, Aussie Swiss franc, AUDJPY, and Aussie dollar. Now, guys, we're going to get started off with some analysis on the DXY. And if you guys remember last week's weekly market forecast, we were looking for these buys on these AUD based pairs, and we're going to be basically following up on those pairs and seeing how we're going to be managing our bias this week. So before we start off with those AUD based pairs, let's get into the dollar index, and we're going to start off, guys, on this 4 hour just to get a reference point on what our previous price action was looking like. So what we can see, guys, from a 4 hour is basically our previous resistance areas. Let's just get this drawing tool. So previous resistance areas in this area over here that we now see prices sort of correcting towards. We can identify that price right now is in some sort of an expanding structure where we're seeing higher highs and higher lows, expanding the range. So with regards to this daily expanding structure, we also have to be paying attention to what the nature of price action inside of the expanding structure is looking like. That's basically how we were able to capitalize on a few directions: observing some corrective price action, expecting some downward momentum, observing again some deceleration there towards our support trend line, expecting some upside momentum. So that's how we trade these expanding structures. We observe the nature of price action inside. So what we can see, if we just take a look at our support and resistance, we have a market that comes from this resistance area, creating support, new resistance, new support, new resistance, and then finally a lower low. But what we can see about this area here is that this area was the origin of some nice sell side momentum. We can see a beautiful bearish engulfing candlestick over there at that resistance area, showing us that momentum has come in from this area that was then obviously able to violate these support structures over there. So a nice important support or rather resistance area that we can be looking out in the future, and that we actually did use to be able to draw our resistance trend line. So we've also accommodated for our most recent price action, and what we do have, guys, is a nice beautiful potential 3-touch structure. So from this area here, guys, what we're expecting to see is for prices to maybe even give us a push away and then come and give us that nice beautiful 3rd touch of structure in this area here, where we will be looking for our reversal structures for some downward momentum on the dollar index. So all we need to see, guys, is just for prices to pull into our zone of interest, give us some sort of a reversal structure, something that we that will enable us to take this position. Once we see that break in our direction that we're looking to take, we then understand that we will be only looking for those reduced risk entries, and then obviously we wait for our nice entry criteria, which is in our case going to be a retest. Once we see that retest, guys, we then start to look for that follow through of some bearish dollar index momentum. So that's what we're going to be doing over the course of next week, guys. We're going to be looking for some bearish momentum on the dollar index, waiting for prices to come and give us this 3rd touch, pull into this nice double top region where we can see that prices have reacted previously and can react again. Once prices get to this area, we'll be paying attention to what they do in this area. Do prices give us an opportunity to enter short? So that's our dollar index for the course of next week, guys. We're going to be looking for that bearish bias price action. Let's get into our first pair for the day, and that is Aussie Swiss franc. So having a look at Aussie Swiss franc, guys, we're going to stay on the 4 hour and just reference our structure from here. So what we can see, and also referencing our previous biases and the explanation that we had last week, was that we basically see prices breaking above this previous resistance area over here, giving us a nice new sign of strength, so a new higher high in terms of this nice move to the upside. Also, in addition, we see that momentum, so we can measure how long price took to get from these support structures down low all the way to these higher extreme highs over here, and we can see that price has taken a very much quicker time, or a shorter time, than it has taken to make this move to the downside. So clearly momentum is to the upside, and we want to trade in the direction of this nice bullish momentum. So what we've done is we then observed most recent price action. What we also have here in the past, before we get into the most recent price action, is our previous lower structures here that prices have violated, closed below, broken back above. So we then expect this area to then in future be retested by price before we see that beautiful reaction to the upside. So now that we also have that concluded, what we can conclude about our most recent price action is that yes, price has been moving down correctively because we observe our lower structures being broken below and broken back above. New lower lows being broken below and broken back above. So we clearly see corrective price action descending towards the downside. Now that we know that price action is correctively moving to the downside, we can be even more certain that momentum is probably to the upside. So what we'll be looking for, guys, is a nice pull into our support regions somewhere along or close to these structural lows over here, where we also have this previous area of support that we're expecting prices to now retest in the current present price action. So what we'll be looking for, guys, is for prices to pull down deeper into our support area, give us a nice reversal structure at this area over here, which we will then start to obviously look for those bullish bias price action. So whether we do see that in the form of prices breaking back above this level of structure and then obviously retesting, or we see a nice descending structure that allows us to enter into this momentum, or we have a nice sign of strength first and then obviously we wait for that higher low to form, regardless of what entry criteria you are looking for this position, we first of all need to establish a directional bias and then obviously an identifiable call to action. So what must price action do in order for us to pay attention to this chart? And all we need to see price action do is come into our nice important support areas, where we will then begin to look for that bullish price action. So now that we've concluded that bullish bias on Aussie Swiss franc, guys, we're gonna go over to AJ and see what AJ has for us over the course of next week. So on AJ, guys, what we do have is some beautiful, absolutely beautiful price action. Unfortunately, last week price did fake a lot of sellers into the market, but we know from last week that we had been only looking for that bullish bias price action. So we're only looking for all of this nice, good, juicy, bullish momentum that we saw over the course of next week, or over the course of last week, my apologies. So going into the actual price action, guys, what we can see is a nice inverse looking head and shoulders. So like we said last week, it's a very awkward looking inverse head and shoulders, because why? We're seeing that left shoulder form, that beautiful head, and our neckline of our right shoulder does not align with our previous neckline, and as well as this right shoulder we have manipulated below our previous important support structures. But what can we speak about in our most recent price action, guys? So in our most recent price action, when we get into the structure, what we do see is prices moving to the downside. So we're seeing that descending nature of price action, obviously. So we're looking at the most recent price action, taking into account what kind of a trend we have here. So what we've simply done is slapped on a nice resistance trend line to obviously identify our current downtrend. What we then see is a nice push to the upside, violating this resistance trend line, giving us that beautiful sign of strength as well by breaking above these beautiful equal highs over here, and as well as this resistance area that was our final touch of our trend line before we actually saw this nice break of the trend line. So we have some nice bullish momentum here on AUDJPY. We're seeing prices beginning to trend in the direction where we are looking to take this trade. So what we need to be looking at over the course of next week, guys, is we still have this nice important area structural low, where we've seen prices then again treating as support, breaking below, treating as resistance, breaking back above. So what can we expect from price action? If price comes into this area, we can expect price action to respect this area as support, because we have violated our bearish trend and now we could potentially resume a new bullish trend. So that's exactly what we're waiting for, guys. We're waiting for price action to basically give us a nice, beautiful reason to enter this position, regardless of what our entry criteria is. We're waiting for a beautiful bullish biased setup to get involved in any bullish potential momentum on AUDJPY. That is our nice bullish analysis, or rather bullish bias for AUDJPY for the course of next week, guys. Let's go on to AU and have a look at what our AU structure has for us. While we're waiting for this network to load a bit, let's go back into our AU. Awesome, guys, apologies for that long wait. We finally have the network back, so we're gonna get straight into AU without wasting any time. Now what we have here on AU, guys, is a nice, beautiful, just like AJ, awkward looking, very awkward looking inverse head and shoulders. So we have prices coming in from this resistance area all the way to the bottom, establishing some more resistance, new lower lows, and now we have a nice, beautiful violation of our resistance areas, giving us a nice sign of strength here on AU. So we have these previous resistance areas being broken above by price action, showing us that yes, there are buyers within this market, and buyers are able to send prices above a previous resistance area where we've seen sellers selling from. So what we then have is obviously some corrective price action towards the downside. Observing the nature of price action, we can see that price went up a lot faster than it has taken to actually come down and complete this move. What we've then done is obviously established our nice resistance trend line, identifying what kind of a bearish trend are we in, steep, gentle, or whatever the case is. And we've also established some nice support over here, taking into account our two most recent lower structural areas over there. Now what we can see on AU, guys, is a potential to create a beautiful 3-touch structure. This 3-touch structure also, guys, has the potential to terminate and give us that right shoulder of our nice inverse head and shoulder. So that's exactly what we'll be looking for over the course of next week, guys. On AU, we'll be expecting or looking for that bullish bias price action to come out of price action after we get that nice touch of price. Once we see prices either breaking back above our previous area of support and then obviously retesting, or we end up being able to isolate a beautiful descending structure, be able to get in on that third touch, price action is going to give us the information on whether we should be looking for this risk entry or our beautiful reduced risk entry. Depending on the nature of price action coming into that third touch, guys, we will decide whether we're looking for that risk entry or that reduced risk entry. Nonetheless, we are bullish bias on AU. We've done our top-down analysis, we've understood the reasoning why we're looking for this bullish bias, and as well as if you guys take into account correlation, what are we expecting on the DXY? On the DXY, we have a nice ascending structure, which we're expecting that nice beautiful third touch before we make that move to the downside. And obviously, because AU is inversely correlated to the DXY, when the DXY is making that move to the downside, AU should be making its moves to the upside. So we can also see that using correlation, this AU bias does align with our bias on the DXY. We're expecting that short-term bullish momentum, so obviously bearish momentum on the AUD/USD, and then obviously long-term bearish momentum on the DXY, which means long-term bullish momentum on AU. So guys, now that we have concluded, hopefully you guys have received the value that was intended for you guys in this YouTube video. Definitely don't leave the video without leaving a like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, definitely do subscribe so that you don't miss next week's analysis. Otherwise, guys, this is T.Mayne, your FX Chasers mentor. Thanks so much for watching until the end. Have a good week, guys. Cheers.